Okay, class. So our objective for today's meeting is to discuss PFRS 5, and this is your non-current asset held for sale. The activity for the plenary that will be more on problem solving related to topics under PPE and intangible assets. Okay, so this is your non-current asset held for sale, PFRS 5. Okay. So the learning objectives for today is to discuss the definition and classification of non-current asset held for sale, the conditions for classification, the initial and subsequent measurement, the treatment on this end cash, after the reporting period, and what are the treatment on the abandoned non-current assets, the financial statement preparation of non-current asset held for sale, and problems related to reclassification. Okay, so let's start with this item, classification of non-current asset held for sale. The, the non-current asset is classified as held for sale if the carrying amount will be recovered principally through a sale transaction rather than through its continuing use. Okay, so if we will differentiate this with our fixed assets, okay, those fixed assets, for example, property, plant, and equipment, those are items wherein their carrying value can be recovered through the continuing use of the PPE in the operations of the business. While this asset, these are the assets that can be recovered primarily through the sale, through a sale transaction, or through the disposal of these assets. Okay, kaya ito, tinawag na non-current asset held for sale. Okay? However, this non-current asset held for sale can be classified as encash kapag na-meet niya yung mga conditions na ito. There are two conditions for a non-current asset to be classified as held for sale. Okay? One, the asset or the disposal group is available for immediate sale in its present condition. Again, the asset or disposal group is available for immediate sale and it's in its present conditions. So or is as is where is, no? So these are the assets that are already available for immediate sale in its present state. And the second requirement, the sale should be highly probable. So these are the two requirements for a certain non-current asset be classified as held for sale. Okay, the second requirement, the sale must be highly probable. And there are 5 considerations for a sale to be considered as a highly probable sale. The first condition, the management is committed to a plan to sell the asset. Management is committed to a plan to sell the asset. And item number 2, there is already an active program, no? An active program to locate buyers, no? Nagsimula na yung active program na yan. And the third one, the sale price is reasonable as compared to the current fair value. And the sale is expected to be completed within 1 year. And it is unlikely that the plan for the sale will be withdrawn by the management. Tinatanong to class, lagi sa jury. Kaya kailangan kabisado mong itong 5 ito. Okay? Ang ano natin dyan ay care yun, no? And committed, may active program, tapos reasonable, expected, parang you care, no? Yan, committed, management is committed to a plan to sell the asset. There is already an active program that already takes place to locate buyers, and the price must be reasonable as compared to the current fair value, and the sale is expected to be completed within 1 year, and it is unlikely that the plan to sell the asset will be withdrawn by the management. Please take note of this kasi lagi nga siyang tinatanong. Okay? So let's now go to the accounting of this. So, to measure the non-current asset held for sale, that should be the comparison between the carrying value and the fair value less cost to sell. The lower amount between the two is the initial and subsequent measurement of your non-current asset, non-current asset held for sale. Okay? So the lower of the carrying amount and the fair value less cost to sell is the measurement of your non-current asset held for sale. So a write-down to fair value less cost to sell and related reversal thereof is recognized in the statement of profit or loss. So there would only be an impairment loss if the valuation would be on the fair value less cost to sell. Diyan magkakaroon ng impairment loss. And again, this can be subsequently recovered in the form of gain on recovery. However, the gain in recovery should not exceed the previously recognized impairment loss. Kaya reversal of impairment is recognized as gain to the extent of cumulative impairment loss that has been recognized. Okay? So here, these are the considerations. If the carrying value is higher than the fair value less cost to sell, then an impairment loss is recognized because in this item A, the valuation of your non-current asset held for sale is the lower value, which is the fair value less cost to sell. And subsequently, subsequent increase in the fair value, you can recognize a gain on recovery but should not exceed the previously recognized impairment loss. And to get the gain or loss of disposal, you will just compare the selling price versus its carrying value. However, the carrying value that is recognized in this item C is the valuation ng non-cash mo, ng N-cash mo na nasa libro. Ano yun? Yung mas mababa dito. Okay? Yun yung carrying value na pinag-uusapan. It does not necessarily mean that the carrying value is referred to this carrying amount. Because the valuation of your N-cash is the lower between these two. So if you will dispose your N-cash, you have your selling price, and if the measurement is at fair value less cost to sell, which is the lower value, that is now the representation of the carrying value that is discussed here. Okay? Selling price is higher, then there is a gain. Lower selling price, there is a loss. Okay? Let's have some examples. No? Yan. So here, there are 5 items to be considered, to be answered. The requirements are how much the measurement of your NCAS on January 1, 2026. Next, magkano impairment loss to be recognized on January 1, 2026. Magkano on gain or loss on disposal of the asset on September 30, 2026. And if the fair value of the asset on January 1, 2026 is equal to 8 million, how much is the measurement of your N-cash on January 1, 2026? At magkano impairment loss to be recognized on January 1, 2026? Okay? So, basa ng problem. On January 1, 2022, the company acquired the building at a cost of 10 million to be used as administrative office. The building has an estimated useful life of 10 years and a residual value of 2 million pesos. Okay? So, on January 1, 2026, the building was classified as held for sale. So, na-meet niya na yung mga requirements or condition to become a non-current asset held for sale. Ano yung mga conditions na yun? Diba? Dalawa lang naman. That the asset is already available, no, for sale in its present condition. And the sale is highly probable. Wherein, a highly probable sale is described as one, the management is committed to a plan to sell the asset. Number two, there is already an active program that has already taken place to locate, no, buyers for that non-current asset held for sale. Then, ang sabi natin, the price should be reasonable, no, versus the current fair value of the asset. Then, ang sabi natin, the sale is expected to be completed within 1 year. At yung panghuli, it is unlikely that the plan of the management will be withdrawn, and that plan is related to the disposal of this asset. Okay? So, na-meet niya na lahat ng considerations dito noong January 1, 2026. Okay? On such date, the fair value was estimated to be at 7 million and the estimated cost of disposal to be at 500,000 pesos. Then, September 30, the building was sold at 6.3 million pesos. Okay, so let's go over with these considerations. Sabi niya, measurement. So the measurement again is the lower between the carrying amount versus the fair value less cost to sell. So that would be your answer in item 1. Next, how much is the impairment loss? The impairment loss can only be recognized if the valuation is at its fair value less cost to sell. Next, the gain or loss on disposal on September 30, 2026, this is the selling price versus its carrying value. Again, the carrying value of the asset is the valuation, no? Is the valuation that is used, no? And that is the lower between the carrying amount of the asset versus the fair value less cost to sell. Okay? And in item 4, if the fair value is equal to 8 million, how much is the measurement? So this is now an independent scenario. No? If 8 million daw. Kasi dito sa original problem, the fair value is 7 million. Okay? So this is now an independent scenario, and you're asked to compute what is the valuation and if there is any recognized impairment loss. Okay? So please answer this in 1 to 2 minutes, no? So, and post your answers in the chat box. So, in your chat box, so properly labeled 1, 2, 3, 4.A, 4.B, and your corresponding answers. Okay? Sige, your time starts now. Okay, so sige, let's try to solve this. So the requirement for item 1 is to determine the end cash on January 1, 2026, the time wherein the asset has been considered as non-current asset held for sale. And the valuation is the lower between the carrying value versus the fair value less cost to sell. Okay, so the asset, and this is a building, has a cost of 10 million, and this is to be depreciated using a straight line basis of depreciation, and that is the default if the problem is silent. No? The building has an estimated useful life of 10 years with a residual value of 2 million. And on January 1, 2026, ilang taon na yan? Nag-lapse na yung 4 na taon, no? So that is 22, 23, 24, and 25. So 4 years, no? So to determine the carrying value, you have your cost minus the accumulated depreciation, and this is your carrying value. So our cost here is 10 million pesos. Okay, and the accumulated depreciation, so that is 10 million minus the residual value of 2 million, that is 8 million, divided by 10 years, so that is 800,000 per year. 800,000 per year times 4 years, and that would be 3.2 million. So 10 million minus 2 million, that is 8 million, divided by 4 years, and that is 800,000 times 4 years, that is 3.2 million. And this is your accumulated depreciation here. So this is 10 million minus this amount. So this is 6.8 million. This is the carrying value of the asset. And the fair value less cost to sell, this is 7 million minus 500,000 estimated cost of disposal. So this is 6,500,000 pesos. Okay? Yeah. So the lower value here is your fair value less cost to sell, amounting to 6.5 million pesos. Okay? Balik tayo sa concept. The valuation is the lower between the carrying value and fair value less cost to sell. Natin. Okay? So going back to our computation, so the lower value is 6.5. So the valuation should be at 6.5 million on January 1, 2026. Next, magkano impairment loss to be recognized? Again, impairment loss can only be recognized if the valuation is at fair value less cost to sell. So the valuation is at fair value less cost to sell here. So there is an impairment loss amounting to 300,000 pesos. Okay, so this is 300,000. So this is the answer for item 2. Next, how much is the gain or loss on disposal of the asset on September 30, 2026? Okay, so we have our selling price here given, amounting to 6,300,000 versus the carrying value of the non-current asset held for sale to get the gain or loss. And this carrying value is a representation on what is the valuation that was previously determined related to non-current asset held for sale. Since the valuation is at 6.5 million, that would be the related carrying value to be considered here. So this is 6,500,000. So the difference between the two is a gain or a loss. Since the selling price is lower than its carrying value, there is a loss on the disposal amounting to 200,000 pesos. Next, let's go to item 4.A. It says here, if the fair value of the asset on January 1 is equal to 8 million, how much is the measurement of your non-current asset held for sale? Okay. How much is the valuation of the non-current asset held for sale on January 1, 2026? Ang sabi niya, papalitan lang ito. The fair value that is originally given is at 7 million. Paano daw kung naging 8 million yan? So the comparison would be the carrying value as is, that is 6.8 million pesos. However, the fair value less cost to sell, that is fair value of 8 million minus 500,000. So this is 7,500,000. Okay? So the lower between the two is 6.8 million pesos. Okay? So that is the answer under 4.A. And for 4.B, how much is the impairment loss to be recognized on January 1, 2026? In this independent scenario, there is no impairment loss because the valuation is at its carrying value. Okay, so that is your item or illustration A. So let's proceed with the discussion. Okay, so let's discuss what is the treatment of this Encash on the event after reporting period. Event after reporting period will be discussed in the latter meetings because this is covered by PS10, no? Ano yan, sa bandang dulo. Okay? Ang sabi dyan, if the criteria for classification as held for sale are met after the reporting period, so after the reporting period na, no? An entity shall not classify a non-current asset as held for sale in those financial statements when issued. Ang gusto lang sabihin nito, if the classification is dependent on two major items. One, the asset should be immediately for sale at its present condition, and the sale is highly probable. When those two conditions are met after the reporting period, it should not be classified as non-current asset held for sale. Meaning, this slide just only emphasizes that Encash, if met after the reporting period, is a non-adjusting event. So this item will also be discussed in the subsequent meeting when we are already in this particular topic, event after reporting period. Next, abandoned non-current asset. An abandoned non-current asset is not classified as held for sale. Yan, an entity shall not classify as held for sale a non-current asset that is to be abandoned, since the asset's carrying amount will be recovered through the use rather than principally through a sale. So, inabandon na lang eh. Okay? Meaning, if that is abandoned, hindi pa rin siya kasi magpa-fall dun sa conditions for classification. And the conditions for classification should be, one, kailangan immediately for sale na yan, as is well is. And number two, the sale is highly probable. Doon pa lang sa sale is highly probable, eh, di ba? Meron ba items to be considered? Yung una, management plan to sell. Di ba? There is a committed plan to sell. An abandoned asset, wala namang ganun. Okay, there is an active program that already taken place to locate buyers, di ba? The selling price is reasonable. Tapos the expected time of sale will happen within 1 year, and the plan is unlikely to be withdrawn. And what is the plan? To sell. So wala nun sa abandoned asset. So that abandoned asset cannot be considered as a non-current asset held for sale. Ganon din kung temporarily taken out of use. Ganon din siya kung an entity shall not account for a non-current asset that has been temporarily taken out of use. Temporary lang naman na inabandon. Inabandon na, di ba? Hindi ginamit as if it had been abandoned. Next, what is now the financial statement preparation? The non-current asset held for sale, okay, are presented as current assets, but separately from the other assets in the statement of financial position. So the classification of a non-current asset held for sale is considered to be a current asset. Tandaan mo yan, ha? Marami nagkakamali dyan. Oo, this is considered to be as a current asset because these are the assets that are immediately for sale and the expectation that the sale would happen within the year. Kaya ang classification mo dyan, class, current asset yan. And the non-current assets that are held for sale are not anymore subject to depreciation. Okay? So let's now go to change in classification. The background on the change in classification is that a previously recognized non-current asset held for sale, ibabalik siya as part of your fixed assets or PPE that will again use as part of your operations. Kaya magkakaroon ng reclassification. An asset that was previously recognized as non-cash, non-current asset held for sale, will now be considered again as part of the assets to be used in operations. So magiging PPE na naman siya. And what are the considerations? Ganito yun. A non-current asset that ceases to be classified as held for sale shall be measured at the lower of the assets carrying value and recoverable amount. So let's say, yung Encash na yon, let's say building, naging Encash. Okay? Kasi na-meet niya yung mga dalawang kondisyones para maging held for sale. Then, gagamitin ulit yung building. Okay? So yung building na yan, ang measurement niya is the lower between the carrying amount and the recoverable amount. That carrying amount, kukumputin mo lang yung carrying value niya, cost minus accumulated depreciation, as if hindi siya dumaan sa non-current asset held for sale. The normal way to compute the carrying value, ganun lang. Let's say 20x1, binili yung asset, binili, let's say building. 20x2, naging non-current asset held for sale yan. 20x3, ibabalik siya sa operations. So meaning, in that 20x3, compute the carrying value as if hindi ngayon dumaan dun sa pagiging state ng non-current asset held for sale. Ganun yun. So meaning, you have your cost in 20x1 and you will depreciate that in 2 years, that is 20x1 and 20x2. Let's say January 1, 20x3 siya ibabalik, no? And that is the carrying value, as if not reclassified as non-current asset held for sale. Okay, and that is 1. And you will compute for the recoverable amount. The recoverable amount is the higher between the fair value less cost to sell, the fair value less cost to sell, and the value in use. Okay? Ganun siya. So, Yan yung change in reclassification. Tapos merong gain or loss on reclassification. Ito yung sinasabi ng libro. If the carrying amount before reclass is higher than the carrying amount after reclass, there is a loss on reclassification. While if the carrying amount before reclass is less than the carrying amount after reclass, there is a gain on reclassification. Para hindi ka malito, paano ma-account ang gain or loss? Magkano ba yung valuation, let's say example, ng building mo ngayon? Yung building, yung dating non-current asset held for sale. Oh, what is the value of this building? Compared, no? And compare that to the fair value or to the measurement of your non-current asset held for sale previously. So kapag mas malaki yung carrying value ng asset mo ngayon, okay, over the amount na nandoon sa state ng non-current asset held for sale, there is a gain on reclass. Kapag mas mababa naman, there is a loss on reclass. To explain that further, let's have this problem. Okay. So ito, ang sabi niya, the company purchased a building for 10 million on January 1, 2022 with a useful life of 10 years and no residual value. So madali lang to. Kasi ano yan, that is 10 million divided by 10 years, 1 million yan per year ang kanyang depreciation. Okay? On December 31, X3, 2023, LB3 classified the asset as held for sale. So dito na-meet yung mga conditions ng non-current asset held for sale. Okay? So from building, naging Encash. The fair value of the building on that date is 6.6 million minus the 300,000 cost of disposal. Okay, para makuha mo yung fair value less cost of sale, which is 6.3, di ba? Pagdating ng 2024, the company believed that the criteria for classification as held for sale can no longer be met. Okay? Tapos, ang sabi niya, the company declared not to sell the asset. We need to know yung intention, not to sell. The company declared not to sell the asset, but to continue to use it. Gagamitin na lang. So, magiging part na yan ng operations na naman as PPE. The fair value less cost to sell and the value in use is 7.2 million and 7 million respectively. Ano yung mga hinahanap? One, measurement ng Encash, December 31, 2023. Ito yung ginawa natin kanina. So get the carrying value versus the fair value less cost to sell. The lower value, that is your valuation of Encash. That is your answer in item 1. How much is the impairment loss to be recognized? The impairment loss is the lower, impairment loss will only exist if the lower value here between the carrying value and the fair value less cost to sell is the fair value less cost to sell. Meaning, the impairment loss can only be recognized if the valuation is at fair value less cost to sell. That is for item 2. Then, how much is the measurement of the building December 31, 2024? Saan yun? Ito yun. Paano na nga ba ulit yun? I-measure yung building na yan. Diba? That is the lower between the carrying value and the recoverable amount. Again, the valuation of the building here is the lower value between the carrying value and your recoverable amount. The carrying value that should be considered here as if hindi dumaan sa non-current asset held for sale. So in December 31, 2024, what is the corresponding carrying value? Kung ang nag-lapse na ay ilang taon. So that is 2022, 2023, 2024. So 3 taon na yung nag-lapse. Okay, you have your cost here minus the 3-year accumulated depreciation, and that is how much? Eh kung 1 million nga per year, that is 3 million. That is the corresponding carrying value, di ba? Versus what? The recoverable amount. And the recoverable amount is the higher between the fair value less cost to sell and the value in use. Okay? So, yun yung magiging sagot mo dito sa item 3. Again, the lower between the carrying amount and the recoverable amount. And in item 4, this should be gain on reclassification, ha? Hindi reversal. How much the gain on reclassification? The gain on reclassification can be determined by comparing the value of your building, your answer, in this item 3, and ano ba yung pinalitan? Non-current asset held for sale, which is measured at what? Yung sagot mo naman dito sa item mo. Now, yun na magiging ano mo ngayon. Sagot mo dito sa item 4. The comparison between the two will result into a gain daw on reclassification. Meaning, the amount of building is higher than your end cost. Kaya sinabi, may gain on reclassification. Sige mga class, so please try answering again these items 1 to 4 and post your answers in the chat box. In again, 1 to 2 minutes. Thank you. Again, I would like to emphasize that item 4, the question should have been, how much is the gain on reclassification? Okay? Okay. I encourage you, no, to post your answers because ito lang naman yung tool natin to measure the class participation, no? Yan. Sige class. Ilan pa lang kasi yung nag-post? 4 pa lang. Okay, so let's answer this illustration too. How much is the measurement of your non-current asset held for sale? The lower between the carrying value or the carrying amount and the fair value less cost to sell. And on December 31, 2023, your fair value less cost to sell is 6.6 million minus the cost of disposal of 300,000. So this is 6,600,000. And your carrying value is, or this is 6.3 million. So 6.6 minus 300,000, 6.3. And the carrying value, ilang taon yan? Di ba 3 taon ang nag-lapse? That is 2022, 2023, 2 taon lang pala. So the whole of 2022 and the whole of 2023, that is 2 years. So if the depreciation expense for 1 year is 1 million pesos and that is now 2 million. So 10 minus 2 million, the carrying value is 8 million. So the answer here is the lower value, that is 6.3. Next, how much the impairment loss? Again, there is an impairment loss because the lower value is the fair value less cost to sell. And that is how much? That is 1.7 million pesos. Then you have your item 3. How much is the building? The measurement of the building after the change in classification. Again, we will compare the carrying value and the recoverable amount. The carrying value as if hindi dumaan sa pagiging non-current asset held for sale. So, mangyari niyan, you have your cost of, let's have this carrying value first. You have a cost of 10 million and get accumulated depreciation. The normal, di ba? As if hindi nga siya dumaan. Since this is now 2024, this is 3 years na, no? The whole of 2022, the whole of 2023, and the whole of 2024. And 1 million per year ang kanyang depreciation expense. So that is now 1 million times 3. So this is 3 million. Okay, so this is now your carrying value. 7 million pesos. Okay, so ito yun. While the recoverable amount is the higher, no? The higher between the fair value less cost to sell and the value in use. So the higher between these two, this is 7.2 million, that is the fair value less cost to sell, and the value in use is only 7 million. So the higher value is 7,200,000 pesos. And this is your recoverable amount. So versus 7 million, the lower value then is 7 million pesos. So this is the answer in item 3. Okay, let's go to item 4. How much is the gain on reclassification? Ito yung gusto kong sabihin kanina. Magkano ba ang building mo ngayon? Your building is at 7 million pesos. Okay? Magkano yung pinapalitan natin na Encash? Encash. Yan. Eh diba, at 6.3 million na. Yan yun. So there is now a gain to be recognized here amounting to, yes, that is 700,000 pesos. Okay? So kung babalik kita sa konsepto, ito kasi yung nakakalito. Ito, if the carrying amount before reclass is higher than carrying amount after reclass, if that is the comparison to get the gain or loss, medyo nakakalito. Gawin mo na lang yung ganito. Ano ba ang asset mo ngayon? At magkano yan reflected the last time na present siya as non-current asset held for sale to determine any gain or loss. Okay, and that is your PFRS 5. No? So we're done with konting topics na lang. The coverage of your on the coverage of your first integrating exam. So the meeting on Monday will be concentrated on PPE and intangible assets. And those short topics na hindi pa na-discuss, tingin ko, pwede naman nang isingit yon on Monday. I hope on Saturday, October 15, ang gagawin na lang natin is mag-review for your much awaited exam, and that is your first integrating exam. Okay, so the coverage of the first integrating exam, that is your lahat ng assets. No? Yun ang magiging coverage ng ating first integrating exam. Okay, I think that would be all for now. If you're sure, sino? Ay, hindi kasi namin alam kung sino yung mga examiner. Kasi, ano daw yan eh. Independent sila sa amin. Oh, nalalaman na lang namin pagtapos na kung sino sila. Okay? Yun lang. Wala nang tanong? Sige. Let's call it a day. See you Monday. Thank you.
Thank you po.